Started, so it's my pleasure to introduce Ingrid Beltita. I hope I probably pronounced that wrong, apologies. And she will talk about AF embeddability of C-star algebras of solvable Lie
It's okay,
group.
it's just fine.
So go ahead.
Okay, then thank you. So I'm, you will see very familiar subject like AF embeddability and quasi-diagonality for maybe not very familiar groups, so the Lie groups, solvable Lie groups. So what is our motivation? So we are interested in finding properties of the C-star algebras of solvable Lie groups in terms of some algebraic terms. This means in terms of the Lie algebra of the group. Solvable Lie group has a natural Lie algebra, and we want to get properties of the C-star algebra in terms of this Lie algebra. So let me start with reminding you what the solvable Lie groups are. So a solvable group, it's let's say a locally compact group, such that if we take repeated commutator groups, so this is the commutator group, the subgroup generated by this kind of elements, then after a number of steps, we get the identity. So this means that the G is solvable. You may think, for instance, to upper diagonal matrices, groups of upper diagonal matrices, for instance. These are in general solvable Lie groups. And we are interested in solvable in Lie groups, so not only solvable but Lie. So this means that they have a differential structure, and the group law is analytic, in fact. And we are interested in simply connected solvable Lie groups because these are somehow characterized by the Lie algebra. The Lie algebra, it's the tangent space, the origin, for instance, you may think of this. So what is very interesting, the specific point about solvable Lie groups that are simply connected is that they have no non-trivial compact subgroups. So you may think that such groups are Rn with with an analytic law, let's say, a special law, which makes them to be solvable. As I told you, you might think about Lie groups of matrices that are upper diagonal. And solvable Lie group, such a group with exponential, if and only if the exponential mapping that takes you from the Lie algebra of the group to the group is a diffeomorphism. This is not the case in general, but if this is the case, the group is exponential. And then it has a lot of very good property, as you will see later on. And this kind of this property can be characterized in terms of, in algebraic terms, as I told you, in terms of the Lie algebra. So a connected and simply connected Lie group is exponential. If for every element in the Lie algebra, if you look to this linear mapping that takes you to the complexification of the Lie algebra to itself, that is simply the commutator, let's say, the bracket of the Lie algebra. Here you put what you want from this Lie algebra. So this linear mapping doesn't have eigenvalues of the form I alpha, where alpha is a real, strictly non-zero number. So as long as you have such a group, so you will get an exponential Lie group. So you can read the property of the group to be exponential. So this is a very topological property, let's say, from a very algebraic property of the group. And on the other part of the scale, a solvable Lie group is said to be of type R if the eigenvalues of this mapping are precisely only of the form I alpha with alpha a real number. So let me remind you that if the eigenvalues of, so if this map is nilpotent, then the group itself is nilpotent, it's a nilpotent Lie group. But, well, these are the groups that we want to study. And as I told you, we want properties of the C-star algebra in algebraic terms. And there are already a lot of properties of the C-star algebras in algebraic terms. And let me show you some of them. So, and these are very old results, in fact. So if G is again connected and simply connected, I will insist in connected and simply connected for the moment, solvable Lie group, then if G is exponential, as you see, this can be read from the Lie algebra, then its C-star algebra is of type 1, and then the space of irreducible representation of the C-star algebra, which is again the same thing as the unitary dual of the group. It's homeomorphic with the space of coadjoint orbits of the group. So the group acts on the Lie algebra by the adjoint mapping, and on the dual of the Lie algebra by the coadjoint mapping, and you get orbits, and this space of orbits, it's homomorphic with the space of unitary representation of the groups, or the spectrum of the C-star algebra, as you like it. And this is a Serre-Blakesley theorem. For the nilpotent Lie group was obtained by Kirillov. For exponential Lie groups was obtained by Bernat and Leptin and Ludwig. So this was a long story. So this is one of the very good property of exponential Lie groups. So you know a lot about the dual, in a sense, and you know how to construct representations for the C-star algebra. If we know that the C-star algebra of G is liminary, so, or CCR, as you want to say it, so the image of the irreducible representation are precisely the compact operators, then G as the group must be of type R. Again, a very C-star algebraic property can be read, implies a very algebraic property on the group. So as you see, this can be again be read by from the Lie algebra. And if G is of type R and of type 1, so again algebraic property and C-star algebraic property, then necessarily G must be liminary. So these results are quite old. So these are obtained by Auslander and Moore in '66. Well, if the C-star algebra is type 1, but it's not liminary, so if it's liminary somehow and type 1, we know what happens. If not, then again, another algebraic property can be read from this very C-star normal subgroup of G, such that the quotient, so the GR has a subquotient which is isomorphic with one of these, isomorphic to one of these three, let's say, a type of groups. These are semi-direct products, and they are very explicit. And as you see from here, it's very clear that if you have some properties of the C-star algebra that must go to subquotient, then they cannot hold if they don't hold for this type of groups. So this again is a very old property proved in '66 by Auslander and Moore. And the keystone of our results is the following result of Pukansky. So if the primitive spectrum of G is T1, this means that the points are closed in the primitive spectrum. So then G must be, so this is equivalent to saying that G is of type R. So this is a very C-star algebraic property, very topological property that can be read from a very algebraic property. And you see what is very important here is that we have here only the primitive spectrum, because for G, for groups of type R, there are a lot of them which are not type 1, have representation of type 2 and 3. So it would be very complicated to say something about the spectrum of G, but the primitive spectrum it's easier somehow because you don't have to distinguish between the representation that have the same kernel. So this is the keystone of our results. So we are going to characterize, in a sense, the IF embeddability of this kind of groups. And this was proved by Pukansky in 71, and then extended by Moore and Rosenberg in 76 for connected locally compact groups, where type R is replaced by a more complicated condition, but not very complicated. Said a part of the group should be type R. Okay, so this is the motivation, and let me give you some examples of solvable groups so that we know what kind of groups we have to work with. So every connected and simply connected nilpotent group is solvable. Trivially because the brackets, so the eigenvalue of that bracket is are 0, so there are nilpotent matrices, and then so it's trivially of type R. The sister algebra of these are liminary, so this is about nilpotent groups. Generalized AX plus B groups, so these are semi-direct products of the following type. We have the real and the real group that act additive groups that acts on finite dimensional real vector space in the following ways by matrices D, but by a matrix D. So this is the action. And we take the semi-direct product like that. So this is a solvable, is connected and simply connectedly group. And if the eigenvalues, okay, of D are, so when we look of D acting on a complexified space V, so this is V tensor the complex numbers. So if these eigenvalues are real, then this group is exponential. Otherwise, it is not exponential. The bracket, the Lie bracket, can be written in terms of this D. And so this is a very large class of groups. Turns out that it's very important, actually. And if we take a special case, let's say V to be R4 so, or C2 as you wish, and we take D to be the diagonal. If you think of this like C2, this is the diagonal I theta, the diagonal matrix. And if it theta, it's real and so it is if it's irrational, then this group, this semi-direct group, is called the Maunder group and is type R, and it's antiliminary. And this is the smaller dimensional solvable group that is antiliminary. And the primitive spectrum of this group can be somewhat can be studied and characterized. The dual, the unitary dual, so all the spectrum of the sister algebra of this Maunder group is not yet known. So you see, it's very important if we can find properties of this group using only the primitive spectrum. So, and again, another antiliminary group, another group of type R is the Dixmier group. So, which is again a semi-direct product, but it's a more complicated one. So we have the Heisenberg group. So this is the Heisenberg group that acts in R4 again in the following way. So this is the action. This is again of type R, and this is again antiliminary. So all sorts of representations that are not yet known. Okay, so what we are interested in are finite dimensional approximations of the sister algebras of solvable Lie groups. And let me remind you some finite dimensional approximations that properties that are used, that are well known, so these are simply the definitions. So sister algebra is amenable if somehow the identity matrix, the identity mapping on A is nuclear, so it can be approximated by this kind of finite dimensional mappings. So we have some contractive maps, contractive and completely positive maps from A to matrices and from matrices to A, such that their composition approximate the identity on the algebra. We won't have any problems with the nuclearity of our sister algebra. All the sister algebra of solvable Lie groups are nuclear, but it will be illuminating to look a little bit to this nuclearity for as a definition, let's say. So a sister algebra is quasi-diagonal if, again, it can be somehow approximated by almost representation in a finite dimensional, so in the spaces of matrices. So this is almost approximately of morphism here. So phi n. So this is again contractive, completely positive maps. And the norm on the algebra can be again approximated on this way. This is another definition. So this is an equivalent definition of quasi-diagonality. In another definition, it will be that under a faithful representation, the image of A is a set of quasi-diagonal operators. So this means that they can be approximated by block diagonal operators. Now, but this is the definition that is illuminated here. And we say that A is strongly quasi-diagonal if the primitive quotients, so A over P, are quasi-diagonal for every primitive ideal of A. So this again means that the image of A under every irreducible representation is quasi-diagonal, and it's can be proved that strongly quasi-diagonal implies quasi-diagonal. And on algebra, it's AF embeddable if it's isomorphic with a star subalgebra of an AF algebra. So this means an algebra of this form is the closure of a tower of finite dimensional subalgebras of B. So these are the finite dimensional approximations we are interested in. And why this, I will show in a minute, but let me remind you that on IF embeddable sister algebra is quasi-diagonal and exact. So this means stably finite and exact. And that every linear sister algebras are quasi-diagonal and IF embeddable. This means that, for instance, the sister algebras of all nilpotent Lie groups are on this IF embeddable. And this IF embeddability is interesting from the theoretical point of view because we want to prove the reverse implication here, which is a Blackadar-Kirchberg conjecture. And it's interesting also because there are applications to this property. If, let's say, this is a result of Barth, Earhart, and Silberman, which says that if we have a Banach algebra embedded in F and algebra, let's say L1 of G, which is embedded in a sister algebra of a group which is F embeddable, then this property, so we can characterize, in a sense, functions that are invertible on a contour. So if this integral on the contour which is zero, then so this is zero, as happens in the case of functions with values, with complex values. So this is important because we can use it for spectral properties of this kind of functions. So this is why we are interested in this AF embeddability. And as I told you, that the nuclearity and the amenability, it's clear for solvable Lie groups, but it's illuminating to look a little bit to amenability of discrete group versus amenability of Lie groups. For amenable Lie groups, we know that the C-star algebra is nuclear. And if the group is also discrete, then this is equivalent with having C-star algebra, nuclear C-star algebra. So the fact that the C-star algebra is nuclear implies that the group is amenable. But in general, it doesn't happen that the nuclearity of the C-star algebra implies the amenability of the group. Because if you take this group SL2R, so this is a celebrated example, this is a Lie group, it's a semi-simple Lie groups. It's, the C-star algebra is liminary, in fact, hence is nuclear, but the group is not amenable. So it's the obstruction to amenability of Lie groups, in a sense. But as I told you, for solvable Lie groups, C-star of J, so no, not G, but its C-star algebra is always nuclear. Okay, so and the group itself is amenable. So I think I wanted to write here that G is amenable. Okay, for discrete Lie groups, again, for AF embeddability, the situation is pretty clear. So for discrete groups, the fact that G is amenable, it's equivalent to with the fact that the C-star, the reduced C-star algebra is quasi-diagonal, or that the reduced C-star algebra is AF embeddable. And the fact that the quasi-diagonality of the C-star algebra implies the amenability was proved by Rosenberg in 1987 and conjectured the equivalence of this property. And this was proved, the rest of property was proved later, much later on by Tikwesis, White and Winter and Schaffhauser, as you well know. And what happens is that for Lie groups, this is not true. So the equivalence is not true. So even neither implication is true, let's say. So if we want to, we look to this implication, again, SL2R has liminary C-star algebra, hence it's AF embeddable, but the group itself is not amenable as we saw before. So it's true that its C-star algebra, it is nuclear, but the group is not amenable. And for the reverse implication, there are exponential Lie groups which are locally compact, type 1 amenable, that have C-star algebras that are not quasi-diagonal. And I will show you some examples later on. And why is this happening? Because if you recall the proof of the Tikwesis, White and Winter and Schaffhauser, they rely on the faithful tracial states on the C-star algebras of those discrete groups. But in the case of C-star algebras of non-commutative connected solvable groups, they don't have to be Lie, so connected and solvable. There are no faithful traces on the C-star algebra. So this kind of arguments don't work in this case. As I told you, there are some simple examples of Lie groups that are amenable, but they are not quasi-diagonal. And these are from that class of generalized IX plus B groups. So this is a simple semi-direct product with the action given by a matrix on a finite dimensional vector space. So we have the group R acting on this finite dimensional vector space by the exponential of this matrix. And we have a characterization of the quasi-diagonal Lie groups, which are the characterizations is given in very algebraic terms. So if the eigenvalues of D, when considered on the complexification of it, are either all positive or all negative. If this happens, this is equivalent with the fact that the C-star algebras of this semi-direct product is not quasi-diagonal, and there are no embeddings into any AF algebra. And the proof we gave relies on a result of Pimsner. So the same sort of result when Pimsner looked to the action of Z on some compact or R on some compact manifold, and characterized this diagonality or IF embeddability in terms of the existence of some attractor repellent pair for a flow. And this is what we used, and a little bit of technique, and the result comes. And again, we will come to this later on, because we need to introduce you some, to give you some definitions, to remind you some definitions. So we look a little bit to the primitive ideal space. So we want now to look to those type R groups, which, as I told you, contain a lot of antiliminary groups. So if you want to study them, it will be better to look to the primitive ideal space, not to the all representation of the group. So if let me give you some definitions. So if A is of C-star algebra, then A hat will be the set of equivalence of irreducible star representation. We used this before. The primitive ideal space will be the kernel of classes of irreducible representation with a whole kernel topology. And again, on the dual of A, we can get the whole kernel topology by taking the topology from this space of primitive ideals and taking it back by this canonical mapping on A hat. And then for a representation of the algebra, we consider the spectrum of T. This is the space of classes of irreducible representation which are weakly contained on T. So this means that this is weakly contained on T. So this is a closed set in in A hat, because this is a subspace of A hat. And we will use the notation when A is the C-star algebras of a group. We will forget the C-star from here, and we take prime G to be the primitive ideal space of the C-star algebra, and so on. Okay, so and a very interesting result of Gabe gave a condition or sufficient conditions for AF embeddability. And this condition is very interesting because it's given only in terms of the primitive ideal spectrum. As I told you, this is very good for studying antiliminary groups. And so this goes in the following way. If A is a separable exact C-star algebra for which the primitive ideal space has no non-empty quasi-compact open subsets. Quasi-compact means that it's compact but without the Hausdorff condition. Then the C-star algebra A is AF embeddable. And Gabe, in fact, has showed that this is also sufficient condition if the algebra is traceless, but in our case is not. The C-star algebras of solvable Lie groups are not traceless. They have a lot of semi-finite traces. And in general, this kind of reverse implications of that it may be well be that the primitive ideal space to be totally disconnected, and the AF algebra to be the algebra itself to be an AF algebra, because if you take commutative AF algebras, then the primitive ideal spectrum is totally disconnected. So this is not true in general, and in a sense, a sort of obstruction is the existence of projector. If we put this condition that the primitive ideal spectrum has no non-empty quasi-compact open subsets, there could be no projector in the C-star algebra, because if such a projector existed, then we can get almost by free an open quasi-compact non-empty subset in the primitive ideal spectrum, taking the kernels of representation which are not zero on that projection. So as we see, when we have a projection in a C-star algebra, we cannot hope that this is a non-empty quasi-compact subset, but a lot of them are IF embeddable. Okay. So let's look a little bit more to the AX plus B groups.
Sorry, I want to ask you a question about this
yes.
this theorem. So is it okay?
Yes.
So do you think that you know, considering this assumption, primitive ideal has no non-empty quasi-compact open set, do you think that it is easy to check always? I mean that.
Well, it depends.
I think it is somehow hard to check.
No, it's not always hard to check. You see, if you look to Lie groups, in a sense, if you have some sort of, as you will see in a moment, you have some sort of reading the properties of the primitive spectrum from the something algebraic, like the Lie algebra, then you can hope to get to prove this kind of property. So this is what we do. In fact, for type R groups, we show that in fact this happens. So there are no. So it was easy. Okay. So
thank you.
let me look a little bit to this kind of rather simple semi-simple product, semi-direct product. So again, this is the semi-direct product when we take this kind of action of R in a finite dimensional real vector space. Then all the result of Grushenik, Canuti, and Taylor prove the following things. Then the following assertions are equivalent. That we have all the eigenvalues of D are either positive, the real part strictly positive or strictly negative. And then this is equivalent with the fact that there is an open compact subset G in the spectrum of D. So in the case when the D has a real, so it's not type R, this is equivalent with saying that there are open quasi-compact subsets in the primitive ideal spectrum. And in the case when this is different from zero, there is a projector in L1 of the group, and then in the C-star algebra of the group. So this is an old result. It doesn't, they don't say a thing about IF embeddability of quasi-diagonality. They are interested in only in this kind of existence of projector in L1 of GD. So if we put all this result with our result together, we get the following thing. We have these four conditions are equivalent. So this very algebraic condition that all the real part or are either positive or negative, real part of eigenvalues of D. There are non-empty open compact subsets in the spectrum of GD. the sister algebra is not quasi-diagonal, and this thing that cannot be read. This one, the sister algebra cannot be embedded in an AFM algebra, and in this case, if one of these are true, then there is a projection in the sister algebra that in fact gives you the the non-empty open quasi-compact set in the spectrum. So you see, in this case, the theorem of Gabe is true, even the other implication. So not only the implication that I wrote, but the reverse implication as well, that Gabe proved the reverse implication only for traceless algebras. But in this case, we have traces, as I told you, a lot of semi-finite traces. Okay, so we look to the solvable Lie groups with primitive ideal spaces that is T1. So this means that the points in the primitive ideal spaces are closed. This was natural because in the case of solvable Lie groups, these are groups of type R. So this is a very algebraic condition on the groups. And in this case, if we have a simply connected solvable Lie groups such that the primitive ideal is T1, there are no non-empty open compact, quasi-compact subsets in the primitive ideal spectrum. So how this goes? So we prove in fact more. So if we take a simply connected solvable Lie group, if we take the commutator, so this G1 that I wrote you before, so this is the commutator group. So this is a closed nilpotent Lie group, and it has a center. It's connected and simply connected. It has a center Z because it's nilpotent. This is not also true. So the solvable Lie groups don't need to have centers which are that contain us linear space. But in the case of nilpotent Lie groups, they have centers which are that contain us linear space. And we take Z to be the center of L. And if we assume that the action of G on the center of this group L has at least one imaginary weight, this means that if we take the action of on the Lie algebra here, it has an eigenvalue which is purely imaginary, let's say, it's equivalent. Then the primitive ideal space of G has no non-empty open quasi-compact subset. And how this is proved? So if we take L, as I tell you before, to be this group, then the quotient, so this is a normal subgroup of G because it's the commutator. Then the quotient G over L, it's a billion. And we denote by Z, as I wrote before, the center of L. Then we prove that there exists a continuous open surjective map from the primitive ideal spectrum of G on this space of quasi-orbits. So this you can think of this space in the following way. You have the group G that acts on the normal group L. This means that it acts on the dual of L. And you get orbits, but of this group in that dual. But to get on a T0 space, you need to take as points here, in a sense. So the points here are the closure of orbits of representation, unitary representation of L, irreducible representation of L. So this is annoying. So we get a continuous open surjective map from the primitive ideal of G, ideal space of G, to the following space. We take the dual of the center. So this is a vector space. That is a vector space. If we take the dual, it's also a vector space. So we take the orbits of G in this space, and we take the quasi-orbits of the closure of those orbits. So this is also a continuous open surjective map. So the existence of open non-empty quasi-compact subsets on the primitive ideal spectrum of G can be read from the existence of open quasi-compact subsets in this space Z hat over G, so this space, which is easier to characterize. And how this map is given. So we take a primitive ideal, which is the kernel of an irreducible representation of G. If we take the restriction of this representation T on to L, this is not anymore an irreducible representation, but we can look to the spectrum of T restricted to L, and it happens that this is a quasi-orbit in this space. So this is a theorem, so to say. So this is a result. So we can take this one, and to prove, well, we prove that it's open, that it's continuous, that to prove that it's surjective, it in fact follows from a property proved by Pukansky that says that for every irreducible representation of the commutator group, there is a unitary there is a irreducible representation of G, such that the spectrum of the restriction of T on L is this quasi-orbit. So this is was proved by Pukansky for, and it uses heavily all the properties of solvable representation of solvable Lie groups, so that they can be obtained by holomorphic induction and so on and so forth. So this is a very non-trivial result. So this gives us the surjectivity. And again, as I told you, that if G is solvable Lie group, connected and simply connected, the fact that the primitive ideal is T1 is equivalent to the very algebraic property that G is of type R, so that the spectrum of this map is contained in IR. So this is, there are poorly imaginary eigenvalues for this linear map, and this should be a complexification of G. And this means that the spectrum of the operators of the adjoint of action of G on its Lie algebra or on the Lie algebra of Z are contained in a unit circle, and then we can get from here that there are no open quasi-compact sets in this space. So and there will be no open compact sets in this space. So this is very roughly the proof. And then a little bit of structure theory for Lie groups allows us to prove the same property for simply connected Lie groups without assuming that they are solvable. So if G is a simply connected Lie group that has a primitive ideal spectrum, which is T1, then its sister algebra is F embeddable. And this follows from the previous theorem, and from this very important structure for simply connected Lie groups. So with spectrum, which is T1. So this will be, they have the following form. So G will be the direct product between a semi-simple Lie group, and here there is a semi-direct product of a compact group and a group which is solvable, connected, and simply connected. So, and then using the theorem and the properties of these groups, so these are compact groups, so they don't put many problems, and some technical details which are well, sort of kitchen, let's say. We can prove this theorem without assuming that a group is solvable. But again, in the case of solvable groups, in fact, this property and the existence of this map is in fact stronger than the property that the group is, the sister algebra of the group is IF embeddable. Okay, so this is about the IF embeddability, but for groups which are type R, so they have primitive ideal spectrum, which is T1, we can show that they are in fact strongly quasi-diagonal. So they are imaging in any reducible representation is quasi-diagonal, and it will be in a sense. In fact, we prove the following things. If we have a connected, locally connected group like this that has a primitive ideal spectrum, which is T1. So again, don't have to be Lie, don't have to be solvable. Then the sister algebra is strongly quasi-diagonal. And in fact, it's more than that. The primitive quotients are IF embeddable. But okay, if the group is simply connected and solvable. So this is the corollary. And it will be interesting to see if this property implies the IF embeddability directly, but we were not able to prove directly the IF embeddability from this property here. So how this is proved using two things. If G is a connected Lie group, so we have the Lie group property here, the condition here, then if the primitive ideal spectrum is T1, then we know there is a result of Pogunked from 83, so null result, that the primitive quotient of the sister algebra are of the following form. So a tensor product of the compacts here, and here this, and the simple sister algebra, which is either the one-dimensional, so which is very simple, or a non-commutative torus. And using the properties, the quasi-diagonality of the non-commutative torus, then we can show that C star of G is strongly quasi-diagonal if the group is Lie. And if the group is not Lie, we use the result of Liftman that in fact says that if we have an irreducible representation of a connected locally compact group, with this T1 property of the primitive ideal spectrum, then there is a normal subgroup of G such that the quotient of G over H is Lie. It's Lie and connected, so that it we can use for this one this property here, and the unitary irreducible representation P naught, such that in fact P is in fact obtained from P naught via the usual quotient mapper. So you can read all the properties of the kernel of pi from the kernel of this of the image of pi from the image of this representation, and from this representation we already know that it's good. So the image of it, it's a quasi-diagonal algebra, a sister algebra. So this is roughly the proof in this case. And as I told you, that what matters is that in this case we cannot, we don't have traces. And let me show you what we were able to prove. Is the following thing, that if we have a connected a second countable locally compact solvable group, then if there is a faithful trace on the sister algebra of G, G must be abelian. Sister of G embeds as a, so this is F embeddable if and only if G is abelian. That if embeds into a simple F algebra, so this is important, a simple F algebra, then G must be abelian. Therefore, our sister algebras, which are F embeddable, do not embed in a simple F algebra. And if G is connected, every tracial state, which won't be faithful, but every tracial state will be quasi-diagonal if the group G is quasi-diagonal or not. So every trace you take, it is quasi-diagonal because it could be obtained from an abelian group. But well, my time is up, so that's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a really nice talk. Do we have any questions in the audience?
Yes, I have.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so in your result, it seems that the assumption primitive of G is T1 is really important, and even in the proof of some of the sketch of some of proof, you emphasize that it is really important part of the proof.
Yes.
So now, do you have any concrete example that shows that the assumption primitive of G is T1 is really necessary, or is so important for you? This concrete example.
Yes, just a minute. So you see here, if you have this kind of semi-direct product, so if you have this condition, those eigenvalues could be real, doesn't matter. So this one is not quasi-diagonal. So it's a very concrete example. So you have even the very simple the classical Ix plus B, the affine group. This is not quasi-diagonal. So the two-dimensional. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Do you have the analog of AH embeddable or something like that in your result, or have you ever thought about it?
No, I haven't. No, I have no idea.
No. Oh, thank you.
A question. I'm wondering if you look instead of at solvable groups, but at semi-simple.
Oh, well, those are preliminary. So from this point of view, so the AF embeddable is assured. It's not. They are not very simple to study, but this part it's easy. So, yeah.
And I was also wondering why does the can you give some explanation for why the non-commutative torus arises in? I think you had a few slides ago.
Okay. So this one.
Yes.
Yes, if you look a little bit to let me give you an example. So this group. So if you look to this group, so you have the irrational thing here. If you write the law of composition, so you will get the one-dimensional non-commutative torus. And so it comes from a generalized thing that looks like this one.
Okay.
So that's why.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions in the audience? Apologies, I'm having some slight connectivity issues, so if you want to just speak out, that would be good. And if not, maybe we can just thank the speaker again for a really nice talk.
Thank you for watching.
And maybe I can also take the opportunity to quickly advertise next week's talks. We will have two. Okay, sorry, I'm just having some technical issues here. Right. Next week, we have a double bill of early career researchers again. So hopefully these talks will be as great as the last two we had. And this will be by Adam McGee from CISA, Twisted Real Structures. And then the second talk will be Sophie Mikkelsen, who's from the University of Southern Denmark, and she will talk about the quantum twister bundle. So hope that everyone will be able to join us again. And thanks very much for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye.